Hey, this is James, and in this video I'm going to be sharing a little bit about the system known as Vera Sibilla. So stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for this viewer requested video. I know it's been a minute since I posted my last video, so I just want to say thank you for all the people who sent me requests while I was taking a bit of a timeout. The timeout was due to my work schedule. I've said this before in previous videos, but at this point in time I am working 2 jobs. I'm running my business, and so there are only so many hours in the day, and as a result of that, some of the things I was doing previously have kind of been put to the wayside or even the back burner, and so my video making schedule got altered greatly because of that. But in that span of time, I still get requests, I still get comments, and so I just want to thank you all for taking the time out to send me all those requests. And so I thought, since the requests were piling up, I better get busy making some videos. So this is one of those videos in a batch of videos that I'm hoping to put out over a period of time. And so this is a request from Celia, who asked me about Vera Sibilla. She asked me if I worked with Vera Sibilla first, and if I did, would I be willing to make a video sharing about that. So Celia, if you are watching this, this is for you. So the quick answer to Celia's question is yes, I do work with Sibilla. So now the longer answer is I do, but I dabble in it. So this is one of the systems that I am not as proficient as I am with, let's say, Lenormand or Kipper or Gypsy cards. My relationship with Sibilla has been on and off, meaning that there are periods of time where I am grossly involved with Sibilla and I'm working with the cards on a regular basis, and then I go for even longer stretches of time where the deck is on the shelf and I have no interaction with it. I am not doing a thing with it. And so I find myself in those spaces more than when I'm working with it. I have occasionally blogged about it, so I will be making a reference to that blog and some of the posts that are Sibilla related in the description box below if you want to check those out. But overall, I don't consider myself to be as fluent with this system as with others. And also too, I may not be as traditional a Sibilla reader as other people, so I'm also throwing that out there. I'll probably talk more about that at a later point in this video, so stay tuned for that. But for those 2 reasons, I was kind of hesitant about honoring the request. But because of the span of time that it has been for me making videos and doing readings in particular on video, I thought this would be a nice way for me to get back into the saddle or back into the groove kind of thing, because this video really is just going to be about me showing you what the cards in the deck looks like. So it's a little bit of a walkthrough with a little bit of commentary and a little bit of a surprise at the end. So that's the best way that I could describe it. So, having said that, let's get to the table and take a closer look at the cards that make up the system known as Vera Sibilla. And here we are with the Vera Sibilla deck as a whole on the table. And what I've done is I've taken the cards and I've divided them up by their corresponding or respective suits. And I've arranged them in order from the suit that is deemed the most positive going to the suit that is deemed the most negative. So having said that, the suit of clubs is first. And so the suit of clubs in Sibilla talks about the positive side of life. And there's 2 cards actually in this suit that are very, very promising when they turn up. They represent good luck. And they can also alter the meaning of cards on either side of them. So that's the suit of clubs. Next, we have the suit of hearts. And the suit of hearts deals with emotions, feelings, and relationships. Then we have the suit of diamonds. And diamonds talks about material possessions and life events. And then the suit of spades, being the last suit, talks about problems and troubles and challenges. So those are the 4 suits as a whole. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by going through the cards suit by suit, one at a time. All right, and I am back with the suit of clubs. So I'm just going to walk through each of the suits. I will offer brief commentary, again, because I kind of dabble in Sibilla, so I don't consider myself to be an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I may share some tips on working with certain cards that has been helpful for me in my practice when I do work with Sibilla. So first up, we have the card that represents marriage. This is the Ace of Clubs. Next, we have Pride, also known as haughtiness. And this is a card that can represent good luck. It's one of the good luck cards in the suit. So that is Pride and haughtiness. Next, we have Journey. This is the 3 of clubs. So you can tell it represents travel and movement because of the man on the horse. Next we have the Friend card. And so for me, when I work with this card, it usually represents like being welcoming, being inviting, because of the figure on the card, offering for someone to come in and sit down. Next we have Fortune, which is the second most positive card in this suit. The 6 of clubs is Comforting Surprise. The 7 of clubs is Grand Consolation. So when I look at this card, I see like dreams, aspirations. It's a card that talks about success. The 8 of clubs is Reunion. So one of the meanings of this card is, a relationship where there's a reunion taking place. People are getting back together. But in my own personal work with the cards, this card can represent a meeting or an appointment. So as a card reader, this is a card that I usually get to talk about having a session with a client. Or in my personal life that there's an appointment I need to attend to, or a meeting of some kind, maybe getting together with a person. So that is the 8 of clubs and Reunion. Next we have the Happiness card. And the 10 of clubs is Levity. And now we move into the court cards. So they have the number. So this is the 11 of clubs, or the Jack. This is manservant or domestic. And so for me, this can represent an employee, or this is somebody who works from home. And here we have young woman. This is the Queen of clubs. And so now I will say with this one, there is a directional cue. If you are working with multiple cards and this card turns up, she's pointing down. So if you're working with like a 9-card box, let's say, or you're doing rows of cards, she's pointing down to the card that's beneath her. So that's a visual cue to take notice of whatever card is beneath this card. So that is young woman. And then the final card in the suit of clubs excuse me, is the Doctor. This is the King of Clubs. So he can represent a general physician, a physician who makes house calls, things of that nature. So those are some brief meanings, because I went through that really quickly. But that is the suit of clubs. Next up, we'll take a look at the suit of hearts. All right, and we are back with the suit of hearts. And first up is the ace of hearts, and here we have conversation. The two of hearts is house. So this card can represent one's home, but it can also represent real estate, property, and it can be a card that can represent a building, and then surrounding cards might tell you what type of building. So that's the two of hearts, house. Next up we have Fairview. This is the three of hearts. And so this is a card that you want to use as a directional cue because she's looking through a telescope. So it's a directional cue to the next card. This card usually talks about waiting for something to arrive, something that is far off, which is why she's looking through the telescope. So that is Fairview. Here we have love. And I personally like the image. Being an angel person, I like the image of the angel. For the five of hearts, we have happiness of the heart. So this can represent a celebration, dancing. Next, with the six of hearts, we have the money card. So this card has two meanings. The first is money, because there's money that is being stored in the cabinet. But it can also be a card that talks about the past. And there's a directional cue too that you want to keep in mind, because one side has the cabinet door open. And so whatever is on this side, the door is blocking that. So you may want to take that into consideration when you're working with the deck. But chiefly, this card talks about money and the past. So that is the six of hearts. Next up, we have the seven of hearts, and this is the scholar or the artist card. I personally use this card to describe myself at times because he is sitting in a place where there's lots of books, so it's my pun for being a reader. Or somebody who is just well-read or educated. So that is the scholar. The eight of hearts is the hope card. Nine of hearts is fidelity or loyalty. Ten of hearts is constancy. And so for me, this card can represent construction based on the scene. Construction, and also too that there is a need to wait for something to develop. There's a phrase that's attached to this card for me, and it's called, or it's stated as, Rome wasn't built in a day. But that is constancy. Okay, so now the court cards for this suit are Jack of Clubs is the lover. Then the Queen is the next. Queen of Hearts is also known as lover. So we have a male lover and we have a female lover card. And then the King of Hearts is the great lord or the great gentleman. And so that wraps up the suit of hearts. So next up, we'll take a look at the suit of diamonds. And here we are with the cards representing the suit of diamonds. And first up, we have the ace of diamonds, which is room. So this could represent a room in a home or a room in a building, like an office. For me, it can also represent a need for personal space or privacy. So that is the ace of diamonds, it's room. Two of diamonds is letter. So for me, this can represent written forms of communication, messages, actual letter in the mail, or something being posted. So that is letter. Next up, we have the three of diamonds, and this is the gift of precious stones. So for me, this could represent something of value. It could represent antiques, heirlooms, jewelry. That's the gift of precious stones. Next up, we have four of diamonds, and this is falseness. So this could represent something that's false. I equated it as something that's bad, something that's wrong, some kind of mistake. But it also has an additional meaning for me because of the cat being seated, in front of a pantry. So there's something about food and food-related issues. Maybe even something having to do with the stomach. When this card shows up, and of course, depends on the question, context is everything. But that is the four of diamonds. Five of diamonds is melancholy. Six of diamonds is thought. So for me, this card is about thinking, planning. This is about analysis. In a challenging sense, it could be over-analyzing a situation, overthinking it. And in a spiritual context, it might suggest contemplation or meditation. So that is thought. Next, we have the seven of diamonds. This is bambino, also known as baby. So this could represent an actual baby in a literal sense. But it can also represent a new beginning or a new start of a situation. Something that's in its infancy. Next, we have the eight of diamonds, and this is the maid card. So for me, this card can talk about running errands, household errands. Might even be about shopping in particular because of the basket that has food in it. So that is the maid card. Next up, we have the nine of diamonds, and this is the lunatics. And for me, I look at this as the flip side of the nine of clubs, which was happiness, and it had the scene with the men outside of a bar or a tavern. And here's like the other extreme, like they've had too much to drink. And for me, this card can come up when I'm dealing with noisy neighbors. But this could be like people who are disturbing the peace, making a ruckus, things of that nature. But in my own personal work with the cards, this card tends to come up when I'm having to deal with noisy neighbors. Next, we have the thief card. This is the 10 of diamonds. And so when this card comes up, it's a directional cue. You want to pay attention to what card is next to this because it could be talking about loss and what you are about to be cheated out of, robbed of. And that could be in the literal sense or the metaphorical sense, right? Because we can be robbed of things that are of value that have nothing to do with money in and of itself. But for me, this could also be like an intruder, like somebody who's intruding on your life in some way. So this could be some kind of intrusion as well. Okay, so now we're moving on to the Jack of Diamonds, and here we have the Messenger card. And so this could represent the mailman or somebody who actually delivers messages. So I tend to consider the card that's behind him, maybe where the message is coming from, and the card in front of him as to where the message is going, or maybe what the message is about. But that is Messenger. Next we have the Queen of Diamonds, and this is married woman. So this could actually be a married woman, a wife and mother. But if not, in the metaphorical sense, for me, this card can be about having responsibilities that you need to take care of. That would be representing or represented by the children on the card, right? Because she is their caretaker, so it can come up, at a time where you need to take care of something, right? And she's the flip side of the Queen of Clubs, right? Because that was a young woman, a woman who was single on the card. So she's the opposite of that to me. So that is the Queen of Diamonds. And then the King of Diamonds is the Merchant card. And so this is known as the job card in the deck. So if you're wanting some insight as to your job or the work that you do, or even if you are self-employed, you have your own business, this is the card you want to see what is surrounding it. So that is Merchant, the King of Diamonds. And that wraps up the suit of diamonds. And now we're going to take a look at the final suit, the suit of spades. All right, and we are back with the final suit in the Vera Sibilla deck, and this is the suit of spades. First up, the Ace of Spades is sorrow. And so this usually talks about receiving some shocking or some upsetting news. You can clearly see by the visual that the woman is distraught over the letter that she has received. Next we have the Old Woman card. So this could represent an older woman. But it's also a card that can represent something that's old. So in a relationship context, this could be like an ex, because of the reference to somebody who's old, right? So that is Old Woman. Three of Spades is the Widower. So this card can represent an older man, or that you are going through a process where you are going to be on your own for some time, because a widower is a person who's alone. Next is the Four of Spades, and so this is the sick person card. So this card clearly talks about illness, sickness. And this is interesting because since I read playing cards, the Four of Spades for me is known as the sickbed card. So I love how this lines up with that meaning of the card for me. So with that in mind, it represents sickness, illness, recovery, maybe a need for rest, healing. So that's the Four of Spades. Next we have the Five of Spades, which is death. And so this card talks about an ending. Next we have the Six of Spades, and this is size. And for me, this card has a directional cue. I look at the lightning bolt at the top above the woman's head, and there's like an arrow that looks like a pointer. So I always tend to consider what card is next to it, because this is making a reference to that card possibly. So that is the Six of Spades. Next we have the Seven of Spades. This is considered the most challenging card in the entire deck. This is Tragedy or Misfortune. And so when I'm doing my daily draws, you know, I pull cards every day, but if I'm working with Sibilla and this card comes up, while it could represent disaster of some kind for me, it can also represent problems with a security alarm system. I've had this card come up repeatedly for that very thing with one of my jobs. I would go to work on the day, I would pull this card and discover that there was a problem with the security alarm system, like it had gone off. Either accidentally, like somebody accidentally set it off and the police came to the site, something like that. But you can clearly see, because of the building being on fire, it can represent fires, it can represent explosions, things of that nature. But it usually represents something of a disaster. So that could be a disaster in the literal sense, or maybe even a disaster in the metaphorical sense. But like I said, I've been working with Sibilla for some time, and I have not had it be really dramatic in that sense. So for me, it usually just talks about something having to do with a security system, like I said. So with that, I would look at this card as giving me some kind of warning. You know, making me think like the alarm bells should be going off, kind of thing. But that is the 7 of spades. The 8 of spades is consumed by jealousy. So you get a sense that this card can be talking about jealousy, envy. Now for me, personally, when I work with this deck and this card comes up, it usually represents the idea of, you know, having a gun put to your head, right? And so that phrase implies somebody being forced to do something that maybe they don't really want to do, and they're being forced to do it. But if you note the illustration, the man is holding the gun to his own head. So it's like, for me, it metaphorically represents those times where I may need to force myself to do something, or make myself do it. So that's my chief meaning of the card for me personally. It's like being made to do something, like having to force myself to do it. So that is consumed by jealousy. Next is the 9 of spades, and this is prison. So just as it might imply, this could represent a limitation and restriction of some kind. And interestingly enough, this is a card in this system that talks about pregnancy. So that's another meaning of this card. So it could be limitation and restriction of some kind, but it can also be talking about pregnancy. The 10 of spades, this is a soldier. So this could be somebody who's in the military, you know, or you're in a situation which is, for me personally, this card can talk about an uphill battle, or the idea that you are going to need to press on or soldier on regarding a situation. So that is soldier or military person. Here we have the Jack of spades, and this is the enemy card. And then next up we have the Queen of spades, and she's also the enemy. So we have a male enemy card and a female enemy card. And the interesting thing enough about this, she's holding a knife. So this could be somebody who is a backstabber. And with the image, she's wearing a mask, or was wearing a mask. So this is like somebody you might not know. The difference between the two, if I'm going to turn this one over, is that the difference between the two is that with this enemy card, you may know who it is, but with this one, you might not know who it is. Like somebody is working or plotting against you, but you may not have an idea who it is. For me, it makes me feel like somebody who's wearing a mask, or like a disguise, like a pretense kind of thing. And in my own personal work with this card, because of the mask idea, for me, this card can represent actors and actresses, somebody who's playing a role. But usually the intention with the enemy cards is that the person is not working in your best interest. And then the final card wrapping the suit up and the deck up is the Priest card. And so the interesting thing about this card is it talks about doing the right thing. So this is a card that can represent, spirituality, being a priest, but it also represents the law and doing the right thing. But he has a directional cue. If you look, and I'll hold the card up closer. If you look, he's pointing to the card that would be on the left side. So he's making reference to that, and he's shielding himself from the card that would be on the right side because he's holding his cloak or his coat closer to his body. So that's a form of protection, right? So when you're doing readings and you're doing maybe a line of 3 cards and this card is in the middle, you want to give some attention to the card on either side because one is being pointed to and the other is being shielded from. So that is the Priest card, and that wraps up the suit of spades in La Vera Sibilla. And before wrapping up, I thought I would share a 5-card reading that I did using La Vera Sibilla, and I was inquiring about the making of this particular video. So as I said in the opener, I received a request from Celia asking if I would share my thoughts on La Vera Sibilla if I've worked with the deck. And so I was hesitant to do it at first, so that's why I turned to the cards. And so the reason for my hesitation was twofold. One is that this is a system that I don't work with regularly. I have had moments where I've worked with the deck for a period of time and then I pick the cards up and I put the deck aside for a period of time. So I have an on-again, off-again relationship with La Vera Sibilla. So that was the first thing I felt. With that in mind, I felt I might not be fluent enough in the system to talk about it. But I have had some experience, so I thought, okay, well, that was the first part. I could share my experience with La Vera Sibilla up to this point, and that might be helpful. And then the second reason kind of coincides with the first reason. Because I don't work with the deck consistently or regularly, I also don't work with the deck like most, I would say probably most traditional Sibilla readers, in the fact that I don't read the cards reversed. La Vera Sibilla is a system where you're encouraged to work with the cards in reverse. So I don't work with that many systems using reversals. And the only one up to this point that I do consistently is the Petite Atea, which I've made a video about. So that is really the only system that I use reversals for. And I've tried it with La Vera Sibilla, and for whatever the reason, I just don't like it. I'm just going to be honest, I just don't like it. So I have found through another Sibilla reader that there are traditional readers who read La Vera Sibilla upright only. So I figured, okay, so when I read La Vera Sibilla, I only read the cards upright. Okay, so having said that, this was the 5-card line that I came out with, or I drew, or I pulled in response to the question. So my question was, what do I need to know about posting a video on YouTube regarding La Vera Sibilla? Because the other thing about that is I have found that card readers tend to be very passionate, especially traditional readers, about how certain systems are read. So I have discovered that with Lenormand over the years and Kipper over the years. But I have found it to be the case especially with La Vera Sibilla. I don't know why that is, but there are people who are very passionate about reading the system traditionally. So I'm setting I'm saying that with the intention of those of you who are more seasoned and more traditional readers than myself, just understand that I'm explaining how I work with the cards. And this is just how I do it, right? So I'm just saying there's no need for people to come at me or tell me that the way I'm working with the cards is incorrect or I'm reading the cards wrong or any of that, because at this point in my card reading journey, I'm 53 years old now, and at this point in my card reading journey, the process and techniques that go with reading the cards for me is something that I just won't enter a debate about. I have my system, I have my process, I have my own experience with the cards, and if it doesn't line up with yours, that is okay. It is okay for both of us, but I will not engage in a debate. So I'm just saying that for people who may feel inclined to want to offer their criticisms of my approach to Sibilla. Okay, so now that I've kind of ranted a little bit, let me get off my soapbox and refer or come back to the cards that I pulled. Okay, so the way that I looked at the cards in response to the question about what do I need to know about posting a video on Vera Sibilla on my YouTube channel, I go with the middle card. I tend to read a line of 5 the same way I do when I'm working with Lenormand or Kipper or some other system like that, or even playing cards. I tend to look at the middle card telling me what is the focus or the heart of the matter regarding the situation. So here we have the 2 of diamonds, which is the letter card. So now this fits the context perfectly because at the heart of it, it's about making the video. This is about posting information, right? Remember, this card represents news and communication, but it can represent all aspects of that, right? So this is about me posting the video, right? And so then I went to the next cards out to see what more it had to say about that. So going with the card starting off the line, we have the messenger, and so this would be me in my role as a messenger. I'm responding to Celia's post. So now as I'm saying that, this could also be Celia's post itself, right? Because I wouldn't have made the video without the request, right? So this could be a reference to the request and my honoring the request in the role of the messenger, right? I'm delivering the news or the message in response to Celia's request, which is this video, right? So when I looked at that, I'm like, okay, it's making me feel like because he's in movement, it's like, go ahead and deliver the message, right? And then in between messenger and letter, we have married woman. And so this card is known as a significator card. So this could represent a woman. So my first thought was that this represents Celia herself, right? Being in the space between the message that she delivered, right, and the response from myself, right? It could also talk about her being the messenger and the message that she delivered, right? So it can go 2 ways, but it's very interesting to see that card. That I would look at that as describing Celia, and then if I make it about me, then this would be about, you know, being caring to her post to me, you know, caring enough to respond to it with messenger, right? So that's how I'm looking at those. So right here with these 2 cards, it made me feel like go ahead and make the video, right? So for me to work through my concerns, the ones I've already articulated about my relationship with Vera Sibilla, and just go ahead and make the video, just post it, just put it out there, right? And here's why. Because these 3 cards are from the suit of diamonds. Actually, 4 of the 5 cards are from the suit of diamonds. So with that in mind, this could be saying that whatever I post, it would be of value to someone. Hopefully Celia, but maybe other people besides her, right? So that's what I took away with that. Now, over on the other side of letter, we have the reunion card. And so there's 2 things here that I want to say with this card. So in my relationship with Sibilla, it's being on again, off again. This would be the vehicle to start up the relationship with Vera Sibilla again, right? Because this represents a reunion, getting back together, being in relationship again. You know, this is a second chance kind of card. So there's that. And then the other aspect of it would be, because I've hit the pause button on making videos for my channel due to my own life circumstances with work. You know, I'm very busy with work these days. So for me, it represents getting back into maybe the pattern or the habit or the routine of making videos for my channel again. So this is like coming back to that, and this would be the vehicle to provide that. So that's how I looked at reunion. And then the last card is the maid card. So this card can represent work, because the maid is a work related position. So this could be about work. And this would be about work that is of help to someone else, right? Because she is a helpful figure, right? The maid is a person who's of assistance to her employer, right? So with that in mind, this would be about work that is going to be possibly of some help or some assistance to Celia, because she was the one who requested it, but maybe other people besides her, right? So that's how I looked at that. And I'm playing on the imagery here. And if Celia was interested in moving forward with Sibilla, you know, this introductory video might give her a step up. You know, it might help her decide one way or the other if she wants to undertake Sibilla more, you know, explore it more. And so that is how I looked at the 5 cards. And on that note, I want to thank you for sharing this space with me as I wrap up. And I want to thank Celia especially for prompting the question. And if there is a desire for more about my work with Vera Sibilla, just let me know in the comments, and I will see what I can do going forward to meet that need. So again, this is James Himm Mitchell, thanking you for sharing this space here with me, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and take care.